Shalom, everyone. If you like this video, subscribe with us to YouTube. Thank you.
Understand, when you go into any situation, you have to have wisdom. If you don't have wisdom, you really don't have anything. Wisdom is what keeps you keeping the laws. Wisdom is your guidance. Wisdom is going to tell you right from wrong. The first scripture we're going to go to is 1 Kings chapter 3. And we're going to talk about Solomon. The first thing that we know when it comes to wisdom, Solomon is just like at the top. If you ever want to get into some good understanding on wisdom of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, read them chapters. Okay? If you're having a hard time really understanding wisdom, go read at least one chapter out of that book a day. Out of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Wisdom of Solomon. Just to name a couple. So we're going to start at verse 16 with 1 Kings chapter 3 and verse 16.
1 Kings chapter 3, verse 16. Then came there two women that were harlots unto the king and stood before him.
So this is talking about King Solomon. Now we starting off with a story early today because we got a few things to go over. But remember, when Solomon became king, he prayed to God for wisdom. Why? Because he knew that he could not face being king over God's people without having wisdom. He knew that he was nervous, and he knew he asked God. He could have asked God for anything. He said, "I want wisdom, so I can lead this people righteously." So this is one of his first acts as king. Not the first, but one of them. So go ahead.
Verse 17. And the one woman said, "O my Lord, I and this woman dwell in one house."
So these women are harlots, and the scripture says they were harlots, and they dwell in one house. Go ahead.
And I was delivered of a child with her in the house.
So the one woman, she was delivered, she had a baby. Go ahead.
And it came to pass the third day after that I was delivered, that this woman was delivered also.
So the other woman ended up having a baby. So remember, they harlots living in the same house, they out here getting pregnant. Both of them had a baby. Go ahead.
And we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, save we two in the house.
So just them two. Go ahead.
And this woman's child died in the night.
Now the woman is letting it be known that the other woman, her child, died overnight. Go ahead.
Because she overlaid it.
Because she slept on it. She fell over and slept on it and fell. She slept on top of the baby, and the baby ended up dying. Go ahead.
And she arose at midnight and took my son from beside me, while thy handmaid slept, and laid it in her bosom, and laid her dead child in my bosom.
So the one woman, she replaced the baby. She killed her baby by laying on it. So she took the other woman baby and put the dead baby with the woman. And they talking to Solomon. Well, she's talking to Solomon. Go ahead.
And when I rose in the morning to give my child suck, behold, it was dead. But when I had considered it in the morning, behold, it was not my son, which I did bear.
So she looked at the child. She knew her child, and she said, "This is not my child." She said, because at first, she probably thinking the baby was dead, and she was startled because it was laying with her. So she seen the child was dead, and she was probably startled. So once she collected herself, she realized that this isn't her baby. It does not bear her baby's features. Go ahead.
And the other woman said, "Nay, but the living is my son, and the dead is thy son." And this said, "No, but the dead is thy son, and the living is my son." Thus they spake before the king.
So they sitting in front of Solomon arguing. Both of them going back and forth saying, "This is my child. No, it's my child. No, your child's the dead child." So let's see what happened. Go ahead. Verse 23.
Then said the king, "The one saith, This is my son that liveth, and thy son is dead. And the other saith, Nay, but thy son is the dead, and my son is the living."
So King Solomon is about to use wisdom. Let's see how he solves this problem. Because how is he supposed to know who's lying, who's telling the truth? I'm going to show you. Go ahead.
And the king said, "Bring me a sword." And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, "Divide the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other.
So Solomon, he had sometimes you gotta get a little ruthless with people. He say, cut the baby in half. I'm gonna give one half to you and one half to you, and this problem should be solved. Go ahead.
Then spake the woman whose the living child was unto the king, for her bowels yearned upon her son. And she said, O my lord, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. But the other said, let it be neither mine nor thine, but divide it.
Go ahead.
Then the king answered and said, give her the living child, and in no wise slay it. She is the mother thereof.
So go ahead and read verse 28.
And all Israel heard of the judgment which the king had judged, and they feared the king, for they saw that the wisdom of God was in him to do judgment.
So he tried their spirits. He tried their spirits to see who really loved the child. And here's the thing about it: whether say the woman that he gave a child to was not actually her child. Say it was the other woman who said, go ahead and kill the baby. Who would you give the baby to? You would give the baby to the child. You would give the child to the woman who does not want to kill it. So it was her child. But in the day, the righteous choice is, give the child to the woman who fears for the child's life. So Solomon used wisdom. He had to be a little harsh about it, but he allowed wisdom to guide him. We're gonna give him a little scare tactic. So that's just a small story at the beginning. Gotta get you going. Wisdom has to be applied to every situation. As I'm telling y'all right now, every day, every night, pray to God for wisdom. If you're at a point in this walk where you feel like you can't grow, you feel like you're stuck, ask God for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. He'll always give it to you. Go ahead and read verse 2. Do we already? Oh, 28. And he talks about how everybody saw it and they praised Solomon, because they saw that he was truly wise. He had the true wisdom of God. So let's go to now go to 1 Kings chapter 3. Go back up to verse 3.
1 Kings chapter 3, verse 3. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father.
So Solomon was taught by his father to love God. He walked as his father did. Go ahead.
Only he sacrificed and burnt incense in high places.
Now, where it says, and Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of his father David, the commandments have to be passed down. Wisdom has to be passed down from generation to generation. We ought to teach this. We gain this wisdom, and we ought to pass it down to our children. Go to Deuteronomy 6 and read verse 7.
Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children.
That's what David did for Solomon. He taught his son the commandments. And even so, David was an example to Solomon. He walked as his father did. So we have to do the same. We have to teach them diligently to our children. We got to be on it. Go ahead.
And shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way.
Every moment is a teaching moment for your children. Every chance you get to drop a little wisdom on them, do it. While you're watching a movie, while you're sitting down reading a book, while you're just sitting off staring into space, just look at them and be like, do you understand this or do you understand that? Give them some wisdom and it will stay with them. Go ahead.
And when thou liest down, and when thou rises up.
So that's the thing. Constantly be on your children. Be on them. Go to 1 Kings chapter 3. And now we're going to read verse 4.
First Kings chapter 3, verse 4. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the great high place. 1,000 burnt offerings did Solomon offer upon that altar.
So remember it talked about how Solomon sacrificed differently from David. This is what Solomon did. Go ahead.
And Solomon said, Thou hast shown unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy.
So remember David went through a lot. David, if y'all remember, we talk about David all the time, and how David fell, but David got back up. As if Solomon witnessed everything his father went through, so it was a teaching moment for him. Remember, I said he watched his father and walked as he did, but he also learned from his father. He learned of his father's mistakes, and he learned how not to go. So let's go ahead and finish that up.
In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night. And God said, Ask what I shall give thee. And Solomon said, Thou hast shown unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth, and in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart with thee.
Go ahead.
And thou hast kept for him this great kindness.
So remember, God had great mercy on David, and even allowed him to make Solomon king. Go ahead.
That thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day.
Remember, David had many sons, but Solomon was the most righteous. That's who he passed the throne to. And even with everything David went through, he still was able to have an heir. And that was Solomon was praising God for that. Go ahead.
And now, O Lord, my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David, my father.
What he's saying is, now my father's gone, now I am the king. Go ahead.
And I am but a little child.
So Solomon is self-examining. He said, I'm a little child. He humbling himself before God. He humbling himself. He said, I am a child. And this is how we have to think. You have to remind yourself of who you are, your position. Sometimes we get a little proud, we get a little bold because we think we keeping the commandments and we're going to be okay. No, you have to humble yourself and remind yourself you are still a child. So as Solomon's king of a whole nation, he's saying, I'm just a child. Meaning he's small. He can't do nothing without God. He said, I need some wisdom. Go ahead.
I know not how to go out or come in.
Go ahead.
And thy servant is in the midst of thy people, which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude.
Go ahead.
Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people.
Y'all think that just because Solomon was king, that he's the only one that has to pray for something like this? No. We all have to pray for this because we all have to deal with our people on a regular basis. You never know what kind of spirits you're going to be faced with from day to day. And you have to know how to deal with them. So you have to ask God to give you understand. Read that line again.
Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people.
So you gotta ask for an understanding heart to judge your people. Because oftentimes we get mad at our people because they can't get right. So we have to ask for understanding to deal with them. Go ahead.
That I may discern between good and bad.
Same thing. So you can discern between good and bad because it ain't always easy. Some problems, when people come to you, some things are easy to solve, and there are situations that are not. Who can solve them though? The Most High. You gotta lean on Him. Ask Him for that wisdom. Go ahead.
For who is able to judge this thy so great a people?
He talking about God. He's saying only you. Go ahead. So he's saying, who am I to judge them? How can I give me something? Give me the power to judge these people. Go ahead.
And the speech pleased the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing.
Because asking for wisdom is a beautiful thing. It is. So it pleased God that Solomon asked for this. Go ahead.
And God said unto him, because thou hast asked this thing and hast not asked for thyself long life.
He said you didn't ask for immortality. He said because you asked for this thing and not immortality. Go ahead.
Neither hast asked riches for thyself.
You didn't ask for great wealth. Go ahead.
Nor hast asked the life of thy enemies.
You didn't ask me to kill all your enemies. Go ahead.
But hast asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment.
But you asked for understanding. You asked for wisdom so you can you can discern judgment amongst your people. Imagine asking for that, Most High give you in that situation where you needed it, and you actually edify someone. That's a beautiful feeling. And that's what we're supposed to ask for. Go ahead.
Verse 12. Behold, I have done according to thy words.
So he said, I'm giving you the wisdom you asked for. Go ahead.
Lo, I have given thee a wise and an understanding heart.
He said, I'm making you wise. You're gonna be able to understand. Go ahead.
So that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee.
He said, you're gonna be the first and the last. Nobody gonna be as wise as you. Ain't nobody like this before you.